error in an experiment, they take these letters to the author and ask them to explain. And then there are replies in an editorial section of Science magazine, and other scientists replicate the experiment, correcting for those errors. And that's how science progresses. Not looking behind your left earlobe. So remember, we don't observe the universe. We already have an interest. We take something and we tear it apart and try to make it better. All right. Now, I had told you before that I have dyslexia and I have this, I have attention deficit and some other things. And when I was in school, and I think I told you my parents said 6 years is long enough for 4-year school, and you better not come home without graduating. And I had to take second semester of organic chemistry. And when it came to the final exam, I had to get a B+ to get a C- in the class. Now, I loved organic, but it was hard. And the man who taught it was called, his name was Dr. Peterson, but everybody called him Black Pete, because he flunked 60% of the people in his class. My chemistry class, my organic chemistry, was in a amphitheater, 300 people in lecture, 25 people in each lab. He was the lecturer, Dr. Peterson. It was 2.5 hours, 3 times a week. And he would, on the very first day of class, he said, I want everyone in the class to go around the room and tell me your major, your name, and what's your hometown. So when he got to me, I stood up and I said, Donald R. Hicks, I'm officially from Andalusia, Alabama, but I've never actually lived there. That's my residence. And my major is large animal science. And he said, stop, Mr. Hicks. You know Raymond D. Hicks? And I said, yes, he's my father. Well, I hope you do better than he did. He was in the class of 1946, and he made a C. Oh. Yes! The same chemistry teacher. The guy must have been 80. He was good. He didn't remember, I mean, he didn't forget a thing. So anyway, final exam, second semester, I studied. I went to, all the study groups. I went crazy. I made flashcards. A week before the final, I went into panic mode. Every night I'd study, every moment I'd study. Whenever I laid down to go to sleep, I'd start reviewing it in my mind and get confused and have to get up and look it up in the book. And then I couldn't go back to sleep. And when I laid down again, I'd review again. So finally, I quit trying to go to sleep. I just drank coffee and took no-dose for 3 days. And then at 8 a.m. when I went to take that exam, I parked there, and I sat in the car like this. Shaking in fear and caffeine overdose. My feet wouldn't work. I went into the final 30 minutes late. He gave me that look they always give you when you come in late. Gave me a paper, told me the directions, and he's walking around for cheaters, looking. And he comes up behind me and he touches me on the shoulder and he said, son, remember this is Alabama, are you on drugs? And I said, no, sir. He said, well, you're shaking all over, and there are 4 blanks for the first 4 questions, and you've written them all on top of each other on the first blank. What's wrong with you? And I said, well, I haven't slept in 3 days, and I think I've had about 100 cups of coffee, or maybe 50 pops. And he said, if he had done this, I would not have gotten my BS. I would have had to go another semester, and I don't even know if I could have gone another semester. My parents weren't going to be helpful at all. And you know what he did? He looked at me and he said, son, you got to promise me you'll go home and go to bed, and you better not have a drop of coffee. You come back Saturday morning at 9 a.m. when I'm grading the rest of these final exams, you can sit over in the corner and take it. I did. I made a B+. Everything's fine. By the way, I wore my orange Auburn shirt, 1957. My dad got it when they got the national championship. And you know what? From then on, every final exam, all the way through graduate school, guess what I wore? My orange Auburn shirt. That thing had to be sewn together. I still got it, just in case I need a blood test. I want to study the night before. And I'll wear my... I know, I'm crazy. Whenever there's a test, I study, even if they say it's a blood test. You know, I think maybe I can change something. But anyway, so what I'm trying to bring out is, my hypothesis is that students under a lot of stress should not have a lot of caffeine in their system. I'm going to do an experiment, and we're going to go through this with that experiment. In fact, I may even do it with you. During the whole term, I'll probably give you really hard tests, harder than this last one you had. Y'all did way too good. I'm going to have to make it twice as hard as you. No, I'm just kidding. No. You're the best group ever, and I'm really proud. And I know you did it by hard work because I remember the 300 emails per day. But anyway, let's say that I made really hard tests, and one person had an A, and 2 people had a B, and everybody else had C, D's, and F's. And then the day before, when I had scheduled a final exam review, I put a note on the door. Dr. Hicks is an idiot. He lost all your grade sheets in a horrible computer crash last night. Not only that, he lost all the questions. He said he was going to give you on the final exam, the most missed questions. So he decided to make up all new questions. From the first day of class to the last, 200 new questions. Whatever you make is what you'll get in the class. Have a nice day. No idiot would not do that. But anyway, let's say I did that. Now the people with F's would be going, yeah! Because with an F, even if they made an A, they'd still get a D in the class. The people with A's, with B's, would go, everybody knows you back up. Alright? And so, you come in to take this all new test. Everybody's under stress, You've been trying to read the whole book all over again. 18 chapters. You don't know where it's going to come from. And there I have cups of Starbucks. And I said, well, I felt so bad about it. I bought everybody Starbucks, and you can have. I did put a little sweetener in everybody. Sorry, I don't know if you like sugar or not, but I didn't put much. And you have to drink the Starbucks before I'll give you the final. And so everybody drinks it. Some of you will get triple shot espresso, and the others will get triple shot decaf. You won't know which one's got the decaf and which one's got the caffeinated Starbucks. Supposedly, even though my mother says she can tell, I can't tell decaf from caffeinated coffee. She says she can. But anyway, supposedly, you shouldn't be able to tell. Alright, so what would be my hypothesis? That's the positive statement about what I think is going on. People with caffeine in their system do better or worse? Worse. Isn't that what I think? When you've been drinking 17 pots of coffee, you're too nervous to think and you're shaking all over, you're going to do worse. That's my hypothesis. Now,
so it doesn't have to be positive, right? It could be a negative thing too.
You could, but I got to tell you how we normally do it first. Alright, so you would always state your hypothesis. It's your idea of what's happening. Your idea of what's happening. And when you want to start an experiment, you're looking for causality. The way you start is correlation. Who can tell me what correlation is?
The link between two things?
When two or more things happen at the same time, they're correlated. Usually one of them is causal as well as correlation. Remember when I wore that orange shirt? Was that causal or correlational?
It's correlational.
Just correlational. There was no basis in fact that the orange shirt caused me to do better on final exams. What probably made the difference was the studying and not being high on coffee. Alright, so anyway, the hypothesis is that caffeine will cause students under stress to do worse than the same person with the same amount of studying and the same amount of rest that doesn't have caffeine in their system. That's the experiment I'm trying to run. Now, let's talk about, see those two? Notice how they're sitting right across from, yeah, that's you and him. Yeah. sitting right across from each other. I noticed they keep doing this every once in a while. And I saw them coming out of Motel 6. Yep. She was doing what most beautiful girls do after a shower, you know. And he was pulling over a t-shirt over his head. Now, I'm sure they were studying science, probably anatomy. All right. Now, you know why she's sitting right where she's sitting? Because her advisor called me and said, put her at the front of the room because she is a single mother with 3 illegitimate children from 3 different fathers at home. She works 40 hours a week to support her family, and her mother has Alzheimer's and is bedridden. She volunteers at Cedars-Sinai on Saturday, and on Sunday she works at the soup kitchen in Catholic Charities downtown. This is her last class before nursing school. She's made A's and everything else. But if she screws up in micro, she won't get in, and there's a lot of people depending on her for their survival. Now, what did I just do? If I ask you at the end of the term, who are the sluts in the class, you will say those 2. You don't know their name, but at the end of class, if I say who are sluts, you'll say, that was that girl there and that guy there. You will never forget it. If I ask you who was Mother Teresa, I think she was sitting on the front. I say, well, list 5 of the 10 things I said about her that were wonderful. And you'll say, I don't know, I quit listening after the 3rd one. No one's that great. You see, what is its second part of goal of science? To convince the public. You cannot convince the public of a positive. When you say something positive about someone, like how wonderful she is, do you have 3 illegitimate children by 3 different fathers? I just want to. Right. I lied about all 3 of these people. I just want you all to know that. I lied. They are not sluts as far as I know. I did not see them at Motel 6. And she has no illegitimate children. And I don't think her grandmother's at home with her with Alzheimer's either. All right? None of those things I said are true, but you will never forget the bad things I say, because we don't forget negatives. That's how they win elections. Do they win them with telling you how good ideas your candidate has? Hell no. They tell them by destroying the other guy. I may be a rapist, but he's a thief, a bigamist, and a Russian spy. You know? All right? So, you cannot prove a positive. Every time I say something good, you'll say, that's not quite enough. Give me another good reason. And I'll give you another one. And you'll say, no, that's not good enough either. And then after a while, you'll say, no, nobody's that good. It's just, you cannot convince the public of a positive. And you can't prove that 2 things are the same in mathematics. But you can prove 2 things are different. And it's easy to convince people of a negative. So we have to take our hypothesis and convert it to a null, a negative. So to convert our hypothesis, what is it? Caffeine has a negative effect on student test scores under stress. We just take our variable, caffeine, and say it has no effect on student test scores. Then I give half of you decaf and half caffeine. Compare your average scores. Apply a statistical formula and see if there's a significant difference between the 2 average scores. That's science. That's the simplest way to do it. 2 groups, test group, control group. What's the control group? The people that got decaf. What's the test group? The people that got caffeine. So remember, you look up something that means something to you. You make the statement of what you believe is happening based on correlation, things that happen about the same time, and orange shirt wasn't one of them. You test the correlation by making sure hypothesis, you convert it to a null. You say the variable has no effect. Then you apply the experiment, do the mathematics, and see if there's a difference between the 2 groups. That's science. It's very simple. It is explaining how things happen. We're looking for causality. Now, when we do the experiment, we have to avoid experimental error. You'll notice this is on the next couple of pages. And what is, when you're doing chemistry experiments, experimental error is what you figure out. I don't know if you do it here, but when I was at Auburn, every time we did an organic chemistry experiment, we had to figure out what our experimental error was, and if our answer was within that, then it wasn't any good. So, but we don't call, in microbiology or in experimental design, we don't call experimental error. Guess what we call it? Confound. Now, if you can't remember that, just remember this. Confounded, I made a mistake. That is an experimental error. And one confound makes your conclusion invalid. So if you find a confound in an experiment, it means the whole experiment is garbage. So what were my confounds in that experiment on prostitutes? Name some.
They are illiterate.
Illiterate.
Illiterate, can't keep notes.
The mineral oil.
Mineral oil dissolves latex condom.
They only did one blood test.
They only did one blood test. How long does 50 condoms last? You think they constantly applied condoms?
No.
They only got 50. So all of those were confounds, and the biggest one was, if you find no statistical difference, what did you discover? Nothing. So one confound makes it bad. That experiment had 7. So when you design an experiment, you avoid errors. So let's think of errors. What if I put decaf in blue cups and caffeinated coffee in the red cups and let you set wherever you wanted? Would that be a confound? Yes. That'd be about 3. 1, I detest blue. Detest blue. The only thing I own that's blue is blue jeans, and I don't look down. I hate the color blue. I don't have anything in my house that's blue. I don't paint a wall that's blue, and I've never owned a blue car. I hate blue. I don't know why. I hate it. I love green, by the way. All right? So, anyway, if that was me taking that, what cup would I avoid? The blue one. Also, personality traits. Aggressive people will pick bright colors. Passive people will pick pastels. So I would be testing color preference, color hatred, and aggressive and passive personalities. I'd have 4 compounds in one experiment if I did it that way. What if I put everything in styrofoam cups? I know it's bad for the environment. And I put decaf at the front of the room and caffeinated at the back of the room and let you sit wherever you wanted. Would that be a good one? No. It's a facet of your twisted, sick personality where you choose to sit in the room. Some people that don't like to be involved in life will sit as far away from me as possible if given a choice. So that would be a confound. What if I gave the girls decaf and the boys caffeine? Would that be a good experiment?
No.
Not unless I'm testing boys versus girls. Did you know that boys and girls are different? Look. Did you know that of all the living things on earth, we are the most dimorphic of species? We are so different, men and women are so different that there is a serious consideration that we might even be different species. You know, this whole thing of men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Which, by the way, is the stronger?
Women.
Women, by over 7 times. Why? They handle stress better, they multitask better, they handle disease better, they handle pain better, they handle everything better than men except lifting, and my trainer can lift more than any guy in here. And she's a girl. So girls let us think we're running things while they pull the strings. And remember who owns the wealth in the United States? Old women. You know why? They marry a couple of them, kill them off, get a gigolo, don't give him anything, and run it all. They keep the wealth. So yeah, you know, the Israelis, that's why in the beginning of Israel, they put women on the front line. They're vicious. They'll do anything to protect their family. And then they discovered something. They also won't take orders if they think that their family's threatened. So when they said, fall back, they go, hell no, and they keep going. And if they see people surrendering, they say, let them surrender, and they go, bop, 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 bop. Now they're surrendered. Women are incredible. And so they are very different. So unless that's what you're testing, you can't do that. So all of those things are confounds. How would you, if all of these things are confounds, how would you design an experiment to avoid any confound? And it's actually a very simple solution. Randomization. If you assign everybody a number and let a computer decide who's in which group, test group or control, the confounds will equal each other out on both sides of the experiment and cancel each other out. Isn't that amazing? Cool. All right, so anyway, as we move through this, remember that all experiments start with looking at correlation. What is correlation? When two or more things happen at the same time, you test each one to find which one causes the action. Like if I was from Mars, a lot of you think I am, and I appeared here in my saucer over Melrose in Vermont, I would say, I don't think people have independent action, because here they go in one direction, then it stops and one car runs through, and then it goes in the other direction, and then it stops and one car goes through, and then it goes back this way. I wonder what causes that. And so I would look and observe, and I would say, first of all, it's the corner of the blind center. And there's a little thing that goes beep, 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 when they're supposed to walk across, and beep, 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 when they're not. Then there's a light, and it has a certain time. And then there's people that are seeing a light and reacting by pressing a brake or an accelerator. So I would have to test all those correlations. So I would put the little beeper on beep, 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 all the time in all directions, and what would happen? Bunch of dead blind people. And what if I put the red light on 30 minutes and the green on 30 seconds? What would happen? People would eventually, you're taught, ignore the red light if it's not working. What if I rearranged it? What if I put the red on bottom and the green on light on top? What would happen? A whole bunch of accidents, because a lot of men are red-green colorblind. They don't know which color's on. They only know which one's on. So all of those things you would test, and you would eventually realize that the only causal one was when the red one's on and people see it, at that position they will react by pressing the brake. Except for the few people that stomp it and go through it, and that's just in LA. Alright, so remember, you look first at correlation and you test each one for causality. And you set up your experiment, and you first start with your idea, called a hypothesis, a positive statement. But positive statements are impossible to prove and convince the public, so you have to convert your hypothesis to what? A null. Be able to make a null. If I give you a hypothesis, you must be able to tell me what the null is. If I say green light increases sugar production in green plants, green wavelengths of light, then you should be able to tell me that green light has no effect on sugar production in green plants. Alright? And then you design the experiment properly, and the smallest experiment can have two groups, a test group which gets the variable, and a control group that receives something that looks like, tastes like, and appears in every way like the variable, but it isn't, called the placebo. Now for years, we didn't have a placebo in an experiment. And one of the first times that we had a placebo was when Tylenol came out. Now what do you know about Tylenol? What have you heard your whole life?
It's water.
Nope. It's safe and effective. We use it in hospitals because it's safe and effective. Now, why don't we use aspirin? Because if you give aspirin to children with viruses, you can get a neurological damage called Ray's syndrome that is permanent forever. So they give Tylenol. Now, the sad thing is, the #1 cause of accidental poisoning in the world is Tylenol. The #1 cause of liver transplant in the world is Tylenol, or acetaminophen toxicity. Why? When I was sick last week, I went out and I got Sinex nasal spray. I got Sinead for the sinus. I got Robitussin DM for coughing, and I got NyQuil so I could sleep. If you look at every one of those labels, they have acetaminophen. And at 1 gram, it's liver toxic.
No synthesis.
You were high.
Huh?
You were faded.
Yeah, well, yeah, near death too. Because everything over the counter has acetaminophen in it because people think it's safe. And so we take many things at once because we feel so bad, we don't realize, we don't read the ingredients. Well, anyway, when they first came out with it, all they had over the counter was aspirin. And so they did a study at USC on people with mild migraine. Now I know aspirin doesn't do much for a migraine. But anyway, they recruited people with migraines that had constant migraines or regular migraines.